Let me start just by giving you a little background into what I do, where I come from. I'm from West Cumbria. I've worked in and started different digital businesses. Probably got into social media around about 2007, 2008 with Twitter. Wasn't really that interested in Facebook. Really big on Google Plus now. Let me just ask by a show of hands, how many people actually use social media either business-wise or personally? Not quite half. How many people are comfortable using it and are sort of thinking, if I have to use it, it's under duress? Look, don't be afraid. It's, me too. One of the things about social media is, and especially about recruitment, and I work with quite a few recruitment companies on this, specialist recruitment companies, who look for a certain type of people. One of the big things for recruiting people is, first off, are you going to get the right person from social media? And it's a finger in the air job, because nobody can actually say whether you are or whether you're not. It's just exactly the same as when you do any sort of interview process. One thing that I do know is that on things like LinkedIn, that's where employers look before they look anywhere else. I've started lots and lots of people in lots and lots of jobs, and we always had to do the same thing, which was CVs, advert in the newspaper, CVs, look at the CVs. It took an enormous amount of time, and by the end of it, you probably had about 5 candidates for a job, and you probably had one half decent one, and then you had to put them on 3 months probation, and we've all been through that. One of the things about social media is you can profile someone really, really quickly, especially in Facebook and LinkedIn. If you're looking for the higher end, LinkedIn's the real place to go. If you're looking for staff, and I hesitate to say the lower end, but because there isn't such a thing, but CEOs tend to think that way, high and low. What I always say to companies that I work with and businesses that I work with, and it's no different for you guys, when you're starting to profile people on LinkedIn and on Facebook, think about your ideal employee, what age they are, what sex they are, what interests they've got, because it's all on social media, every bit of it. We only have to look at probably, I think it was about 18 months ago with Paris Brown. She was an example who just put far too much on social media and said far too many things. But that can be a good thing, because that can sort out who you want and who you don't want really, really quickly. The worst thing about social media is that people tend to think that once you've got onto social media, you've got to be on there every day. And you've got to be, I had Weetabix for my breakfast. I'm just about to take the dog for a walk. And all that's termed as noise. That's one of the great things about social media, is that you can filter it all out. One of the things that I found when I employed people in my business, and I employed people when I worked at CN, the newspaper group, I used to look after all their digital offerings, all the newspapers, all the magazines, 9 radio stations, and we had a staff of about 18. One of the things that CN always did, they had a leavers sheet, and we asked questions about what it was, well, what the reason was, basically why they wanted to leave, why we couldn't return them. Because one of the things about retention and churn rate is that was the big one, and I know you guys, and I apologise, won't see that, which is job shock. People didn't realise what we were actually asking them to do, and I would imagine that's exactly the same as what you guys get. Would that be about right? I mean, my late father suffered from Alzheimer's, and I have to say, and I'll be brutally honest, my dad's care went from there to there. In some ways it was really bad, and in some ways it was fantastically good, and there was a lot in the middle, and he, from when he was diagnosed to when he finally passed away, it was about 4 or 5 years. And that was the big thing for me, because I went to lots of meetings with him, because I had to, because he couldn't remember who he was. And half the time I couldn't remember who he was. But the thing was, when we got there, it was like, we need to do this, 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 this and this, and I'm not trying to tell you guys how to do your job, because I don't know anything other than what I've been experienced to with my dad about what you do. But one thing I do know is the emotion that people put into it was incredible. I mean, my dad wouldn't let people in the door, and they had my mobile number, and they used to ring me and they'd say, Keith, your dad won't let us in, and he'd be shouting through the letterbox at the care workers. But because of mobile phones, they could ring me. I was 2 minutes away down and let him in. It was fantastic. But that was the big thing for me, was job shock. And I seen like quite a few people come and go through my dad's illness because they just couldn't handle it. One of the things about social media is you can find them caring people. It's really, really easy. There's what's called social triggers. And the social triggers are things like people who are really family orientated, people who love looking after kids, who love looking after grandparents. And I'm a grandparent, so I really enjoy that. People who show a willingness to care, a willingness to help other people in their locale, if you like. I mean, one of the big things about Cumbria, and I spoke down in London a couple of months ago, and one of the things I was really, really surprised with, there's very few communities in London anymore. There used to be like the East End and little enclaves, and all that's starting to disappear. One thing we still have in Cumbria is really strong communities, and long may that last. But through social media, you can find those people, and that's why you see groups springing up, you know, like visit Penrith and do this and do that. That's what social media can bring. So if you look for those triggers, then that's what you'll find. You'll find the people that care. Think about the profile again, what age you want them to be. One of the big things on this is how does social media fit into your daily life, because people think, a lot of the businesses that I work with, they think, how long do we have to spend on this? How often do I have to be updating? And one of the things about being on social media is that it's really easy to set it so that you can see when people who are on your trigger list are actually on social media. It's really easy to set up and do. So you don't have to be proactive, you can be reactive. So when something comes up, you can engage with someone and start a conversation. Because it's no different to being in here today. Once I stop rambling on and we have a cup of coffee, everybody gets together and starts talking, and it's no different. The only thing you need to do is you just have to make sure that you're talking to the right people. That's the big thing. That's what wastes so much time on social media. It's no different to anything else. Something that you've got to have really, really early on is a policy and a strategy, because if you don't have that, then it's just noise. And policy can be anything really, really simple. It will, for argument's sake, Keith will update 4 times a day, and it'll be nothing about personal stuff. It'll just be about work. I'm not too sure, because people do business with people. So you've got to have a little bit of the flavour of you in there, because if it's all just corporate stuff, it just doesn't work. If I was standing here with my logo, talking to you guys from behind the logo, you don't get any sense of who I am, or the warmth that there might be there, or the connectivity that there is there. If you're going to set up a Facebook page or a Twitter account, my advice would be is listen for the first few days. Just set it up, especially Twitter. Just set it up. Do a couple of searches for different things that you want, and it's only just in the search bar at the top. Just use it like Google and search for different things. So it could be social care, healthcare, whatever you want to search for it, and then just listen to the conversations. That's how you can filter it out and join in the conversations that you want to join in. Don't be rushed. You'll probably find that when you first set up Facebook, in the first month or two, you're bombarded with friend requests and friend suggestions. Just ignore them. And don't think that if you press something, like the shutters are going to go down in the house and the red lights will come on and the van will turn up and drag you off. It won't. But one thing that I always say, and I say to sixth formers that we work with, right up to CEOs, don't put anything on there that you don't want your mother to hear, because nothing's ever deleted on the internet, and never believe that it is, because it's not. It never goes away. I've talked pretty much about this, how to recruit staff, but one of the big things about this is that don't take any shortcuts on it. The thing about social media is it's all about gaining trust from someone. This isn't about looking for a profile and then saying, do you want a job? Through social media, even over the recruitment company I work with, they actually started recruiting specialist engineers within inside of 2 months. And these guys were on 100 grand plus, just through profiling. And that's one of the things, if you start to recruit staff, or you're starting to look at staff on social media, like on Facebook, LinkedIn, even Twitter, even with 140 characters, which roughly equates to 25 words for us. on Twitter. You can still find people. Retaining staff is one of the big things. And one of the things that I say to most of the companies that I deal with is treat your staff like adults. Let them have a go at it. Once you've got it all set up and you're off and running with social media and you're quite happy, you've got your policy and you've got your strategy, anyone who shows any sort of inclination, let them have a go. Because if you don't, then you have this thing of, it's always in the back of their minds that they're missing out. And none of us like to miss out. We all, if people show an aptitude for it, let them do it, but keep an eye on them. Because if you don't, that's when they start to sort of think, oh, is this for me? Because I'm missing out. So always think about it. Motivating staff is one of the biggest things with social media. Now, one of the things when I worked for CM and when I worked down in Manchester, there was a trigger word and we all used to get up and do a dance, hokey cokey, whatever, right? And we do this through social media. Now, all the guys that I work with, there's about 25 of us, and we all do like a digital dance, which sounds like totally ludicrous. But one of the things that I found when I was at CM was that everybody getting up and having a bit of a jig just like really sort of blew the ice away. Because one of the things that you find, especially when you're working in my kind of industry, and I imagine your sort of industry, the devil is in the detail. You sort of head down, bum up. Yeah? And you never sort of, your head's sort of, you've got so much to do, you're doing so much that you never really get a chance for a bit of fun. So have a bit of fun. Motivate your staff and your staff will just repay you in more ways than you can ever imagine. Empower them is the big thing. And you can tell by the way I speak about it, this is something that I'm really big on, is empowerment. Motivation is recognition, job satisfaction, responsibility, advancement, growth and achievement. And all that can be done through social media. Because you can speak to one another continually with these things now. We're connected 24/7. We can speak to one another whenever we want. We don't have to be face to face. I was talking to a guy this morning, would you believe, at 6:20, and he was in California and I was sitting in my back bedroom in Whitehaven. And I was talking to him on this while I was getting ready to come and do this for you guys today. And that's how incredible it is. Talking about, it was really interesting, the slides that were on before, so I'm going to sort of just go off topic a wee bit here. They were talking before about what's going to come in the future. What's already being developed at the moment in America. In America, there's something like 250,000 million whatever is wasted on medication. And the reason that it's wasted is because we've all done it. You'll go into the doctors and the doctor will say, have you taken your medication, Keith? Yeah, of course I have. It's either laying in a drawer or it's gone out in the bin because I forgot to take it. What's happening now in America, and it's already been passed for trials, is what's called a sensor pill. And what this sensor pill does, the patient takes it, the natural acids in your stomach obviously do its job and the pill breaks up. It latches itself to the walling of your stomach and it sends out sensors, sends out messages. And the messages come, you know, like a smoker's patch. It's like a smoker's patch on your arm, and it sends it to the sensor on your arm, which sends it to your phone, which sends it to the doctor. So even before you get into the doctor knows if you've taken your medication. And because this thing is so successful, there's another company that's actually developed a pill that it's actually going to stop us having all those sorts of tests that we don't like colonic tests and all this. It can actually monitor. The big problem that they're having at the moment is the privacy laws. Who has all of this? Who has access to all of this? But there's a wristband, very much like this one, that's been developed with Chrysler cars. And it was designed for cars to begin with, but it's also moving over into social and healthcare in America. And basically what it does is, it senses your body continually. So in this car, there's no handles on it. It's a bit of a stretch, but this thing's actually already been developed. It's in production now at Chrysler. And you get into it, as you walk up to it, it senses who you are. And everyone there's no keys, it's just a band, so each member of the family who can drive as a band. It lets you in. You put your hand on the steering wheel, and it's got just over 500 sensors in the steering wheel and the gear stick, and there won't be a gear stick before long. And it can tell instantly if you've had too much to drink, if your blood sugar's too low, if your heart rate's too high, a myriad of things. And if you try and start it, it won't start, it just locks itself down. Now the other thing is, you can be driving along with your hands on the steering wheel, and if your heart starts to flutter or whatever, the car will pull over, and it knows by the diagnosis from this who to call. So it could be your doctor, it could be the police, it could be any number of people, it could be your care worker, it could be any number of people. So these things are now starting to develop in the next couple of years. So how will this filter through to social media and to you guys? Well, basically what you would have, just no different to this pad, is that all the information that's coming from this and what's inside you will be on there. So the first line people that go in to see people, and my sister-in-law, she was a care worker for donkey's years, Tanya. And I was talking to her about it a couple of days ago when Sandy asked me to come and speak to you, and I said, well, if I tell you this, and you could see it on this before you went in to see your person, you know, your patient, whatever, how would that help? And she said it would be brilliant because I would know if she'd taken a medication, I would know if she was comfortable, because you can track the band to see if they're moving about. It's absolutely incredible the way that things are going. So tied in with social media, the staff that you will bring in that will be open to all of this, because as you've seen in the YouTube video, it's definitely coming in. You don't really have a great lot of choice. The old ways are going to slowly die out, and as the new younger people start to come in and start to get into care work, they're going to want to have access to this. They're not going to be all dinosaurs like us. They're going to be saying, you know, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? They're going to push the technology forward. So when you're looking for staff and you want to retain staff, they're the types of profiles that you want. The people that are going to lead, and they're going to lead your organisations into the next century, because that's where you want to be. I mean, I agree. I mean, I want my care to be second to none. By the time, if I ever, God forbid, get to the stage that my dad was, so I mean, I probably wouldn't know how good it was or how bad it was. I probably wouldn't care. But the thing is, the people who are giving it care, and that's what really counts. And that's what counts for families, to know that they're looked after. So for me, the more information that someone had about me or my dad when he was suffering would have been fantastic for me. If I could have seen what he was doing on this and how he was doing. He used to hide his money on the wardrobe and then say that they'd stolen it. I could tell you some great stories. But we would know where his money was because we could track it. We would know where he'd been. The other thing was, and you guys will probably know better than me, the doctor said to me, as soon as he can't remember where he lives, that's when he's got to go into care. Well, one of the things about this is, because we're all geolocated and we're tracked 24/7, we know where we are anywhere. Well, Google knows where we are. And that's one of the things about the information side of it. But if my dad had had a wristband, because he wouldn't have carried a phone, but if he'd had a wristband, or if he'd taken a sensor pill, and I could have seen where he was, would have been fantastic, because it would have put me at rest, and I'm sure it would put you guys at rest. So like I've said, when you get to staff, and you get to retain staff, and you get to employ staff, these are the types of things that you've got to ask them. What are they like on technology? How up on it are you? Is it something that interests you? What is it that scares you about it? These are the types of things, the questions that you've got to ask, because they're the next generation of care workers. They're probably the ones who's going to be looking after us at the end of the day. So we want to want it to be as good as it can possibly be.